Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Jordan Lee Dooley, who's here to share with us her new book, Embrace Your Almost. Find clarity and contentment in the in-betweens, not-quites, and unknowns. So how do you pivot when you fall short of what you've been striving for? In this show, we're going to uncover just that. So Jordan Lee Dooley is a national best-selling author of Embrace Your Almost and Own Your Everyday, and host of the top-rated podcast She. She's also the founder of Own It Academy, a digital education company, and SoulScripts, a words company known for its phrase, "Your brokenness is welcome here." Jordan Lee has been featured on Hallmark Home and Family, Forbes, and many more. So let's welcome to the show, Jordan Lee Dooley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. I got to tell you, once I saw this, I was like, okay, we need to talk. So what inspired you to write this? Why don't you share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I found myself with a variety of different, I call them almosts. And what I mean by that the situations in life where you're just shy of the finish line. I always refer back to when I was in high school, I decided to run track one year. I was terrible at track. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but I decided to do that. And the first race I ran, I was neck and neck for first place in like the final several yards of the race. And I had this idea to lean over the finish line to try to beat my opponent by like a millisecond. But I had no experience with that tactic at all. And as I leaned way too early and way too far. And my momentum carried me forward and I face planted on the track, like skid marks, like on my arms, like scabbed up elbows, like all the things. Everyone ran past me. I almost finished first and I ended up finishing dead last. And I share that story in the beginning of the book because I think it's such a visual of what can happen in our lives when we run so hard and so fast after something we want so bad, whether that's a promotion or a new career or a family or a relationship or whatever. And sometimes we can like force the issue so much that we find ourselves like feeling like no matter what we do, we fall just short of where we thought we would be by now in our lives. And, not only in my own experience with some lighter things and some heavier things, I not only lived through that in various ways, but I also felt like through the last several years, so many of us have had that. I almost got married and my wedding had to get pushed back a year, or I almost, made it to partner. And then my company, had layoffs because the whole world changed. Like there were so many almost, not only in my life, but globally, that I just felt like this is a message we need, because when something almost works out, but then doesn't, a lot of times we find ourselves kind of reeling a little bit, and we find ourselves in a waiting season or a feeling of unknown and uncertainty of like, well, now what? Like, what does this future look like? Like, where do I go from here? And it can be not only discouraging, but also really disheartening and kind of scary to look at the unknown and go, is this ever going to work out now? So anyway, that was kind of the original, not only my own experience, but also just so much of what we lived through as a globe, as a world. That really inspired me to just take this message and run with it.
So I know you talk very candidly about your story in your book. Mm-hmm. At what point did you decide, okay, I need to start redefining success?
Yeah, I would say once there was two things that really happened. I hit a really, low point when it comes to burnout. Like I completely burned out. I had to the point where like medical tests were showing me that like my thyroid was fatigued, but like I was having physical manifestations of burnout, not just like, oh, I'm overworking myself. And I had also walked through a lot of grief and loss that year. And so those two things combined really kind of made me pause, because when you come close to matters of life and death, or when you come face to face with like even your own mortality or loss in your family or anything like that, it can really shift your perspective in a way few other things can, as can kind of having a reality check on where you're really at when it comes to your own health. And so both of those things really made me pause and go, what am I pursuing and why? Like, what am I chasing? And should I be chasing all of these things, or am I chasing some of them arbitrarily because I saw so-and-so online do it, or because I thought it would sound cool, or I've set this deadline in my head that by X age, I need to have achieved XYZ. And so that was really, there was a lot of I guess, concentrated experiences with both loss and health issues kind of all in one year in 2020, that really kind of made me go, I think I need to do some things differently. And so that was really the start of shifting my perspective and shifting my approach on what is success to me and how do I shift the way that I'm pursuing success so that I can do it in a sustainable way.
Well, and when you talk about having these crises, I mean, you had accomplished so much by the
Mm-hmm.
time you were 25. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
more than I think most people,
Mm-hmm.
do in their entire lifetime. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you look at that, I know you talk about just like the stress of it all and how that had such a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we have this idea that like if we can just do all the things by a certain age, we're going to be successful, we're going to be happy. And, in a way, like on paper, I had achieved so many of those like bucket list goals or bucket list dreams. I had written a national best-selling book. I had built a big social media audience. I had hit seven figures in my business. Like I had done all of these things that I just thought were like a pipe dream a few years prior. And all of that was great. Like I'm super thankful for those experiences and to have been able to do those things. But I think I made my measure of success and even kind of ran the risk of even putting my worth and sense of value in those accomplishments to the point where doing all of that so quickly and so early, but I think this can happen at any point, but especially when you're young. I think what happened was I began to feel that pressure of like, well, now I've got to outdo that, right? I've got to now write another best-selling book, or I've got to outsell, my last copy, or I've got to, double my business revenue, or whatever these things are. Like we can just feel like, okay, now I've got to like beat myself, and it can create this like hamster wheel, of like, it's just never enough. And I've really, over the last couple of years, and it's written about in Embrace Your Almost, had to learn the art of defining enough, because I think that's actually a huge measure of success. And when you have a period of explosive growth or a few things work out really well, and then all of a sudden you're faced with something that doesn't work out, it can be really jarring and it can be really like shocking. But in the midst of things starting to all of a sudden not work out in various different ways, I really had to come face to face with what does it mean to define enough, and how do I do the right things for me, not just the things I think I'm supposed to do or what I see other people doing. So that's been a really interesting perspective shift to learn as I get older and as I mature in this process, and as I go through things that don't just work out perfectly, like they all were for a little while, learning what does it mean to define enough and how do I apply that to my own life.
There's so many people right now going through, I think, really deep disappointment, over the
Mm-hmm.
last couple of years because they had goals and
Yeah.
dreams and now they're stuck with like, huge disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things. And disappointment can range from every feeling from I'm disappointed to I'm absolutely devastated, and I almost feel despair. Like I feel like there's no hope to even give this a shot in the future. But in my own experience with both just disappointments, like, oh, bummer, that like work thing didn't work out, to deep devastation of like, oh my gosh, something precious has been taken from me, or I've gone through immense loss when I didn't expect to. Both of those types of experiences, as much as they are so difficult and so frustrating and honestly like super discouraging, I found that there is a unique invitation that kind of is like that is nestled in those experiences. And I hesitate to use the word invitation or opportunity because it sounds super positive in a time that doesn't feel very positive. But in my own experience, and I talked to you briefly about this earlier, but in my own experience, it was like a invitation to reevaluate, like, where are we going and why, and I think when we feel disappointed, that doesn't mean we should invalidate or ignore the very real feelings that come with that. But I also think if we can get ourselves to say, okay, but how does this provide me clarity for the future? There is some sort of gift in that, because sometimes we run so fast and so hard and we're so busy all the time just doing everything that when something doesn't work out, or we feel disappointed, or we feel like we're even set back, to try to shift our mind from like, this feels like a setback, but how could it maybe be a setup? Like maybe this is actually a chance to pause and reevaluate and really get clear on where I'm going and why. I have found in my own life, like it is not only those disappointments and those devastating experiences, not only have they given me clarity, but they've also really created a sense of like appreciation for what is right for me. And so I really encourage anyone who finds themselves feeling disappointed that something didn't work out, or even devastated by something not working out, or through something really going wrong, to say, okay, let me pause for a second and let me like sort through all the pieces here, and not only feel the feelings and deal with the frustration that comes with this, but also say, what is this how can this set me up for the future, even though it feels like a massive setback right now?
If someone's having a hard time finding clarity and
Mhm,
they ask that question and they're
mhm,
not really able to see, like, okay, I can't really see a benefit in this,
mhm,
what would you
mhm.
suggest?
One thing I call it the single most important question. And what I mean by that is there's a question that I think is so important to ask to everything you think you want to do, or that you think you want to pursue or work on, or what have you. So, if you have walked through a disappointment or a big setback or something that really disrupted your dreams or your goals or the things that you've been working on, I think the best place to start is by evaluating everything that's on your plate. So not only like just all of your current obligations, your current commitments, the things that you are doing, the things that you are pursuing, as well as the goals that you have. And maybe it's the goal that just got messed up and you're like, that's still my goal, or that's still something I want. I always recommend looking at every single one of those things, your current obligations, your goals, etc., and asking why. Why is this something that I've committed myself to? Why is this something I give my time to? Why is this something that I'm doing? And if you or why is this something that I want, or why is this something that I feel like I want to keep pursuing even though it's really broken my heart or let me down this time around? Ask yourself that question to every single thing, because that does provide a ton of clarity. Sometimes you might go, well, actually I don't really know why I'm doing that. I think I'm just doing it because I've seen other people do it, or because I thought I was supposed to by now, or because, you may come up with this reason that's like not really a strong reason. Whereas for some of them, you might say, because that has been something that I have felt like is part of my life's mission since the time I was 10 years old, or because that is something that will help advance my family, or because that is something that will provide me the lifestyle that I feel is important when I have children, or whatever you might come up with that has, deeper rooted purpose and a bigger purpose than just, oh, I saw someone else doing it, or, oh, I don't know, it just sounded good, and that's really where you can start one by one auditing the things on your plate and the goals you're pursuing, and start getting that clarity. A lot of times, adversity can create clarity in the sense that it gives you perspective, but it doesn't necessarily mean all of a sudden like the clouds part and everything becomes crystal clear. Sometimes you have to actually go through the work and do the work of, let me audit and evaluate every single thing that I've either already committed to, or that I want to do, or think I want to do, and really ask that hard question and put it under a microscope and see, like, why am I doing this? Why do I want this? And a lot of times that will give you so much clarity and help separate the wheat from the chaff.
Well, we love that because it makes it a little bit easier, even though I know when we're going through difficult times, nothing seems easy.
Not at all. No, not at all. And I don't think it's meant to be. This is actually not an easy process. And sometimes the answer doesn't come the second you ask the question. Sometimes you actually, at least in my experience and what I've found, is it can be really helpful if there's something that you're trying to evaluate, you're trying to audit. It's definitely hard, but sometimes it's hard to even answer yourself. And so it can be helpful to ask a friend or a spouse or a mentor or someone in your trusted circle to help you work through that. Like, can you help me like work through why I think I need to pursue this, or why I feel the pressure to do X, Y, or Z, or why I've said yes to this or that? And it can be helpful to have someone else's input on that. And it can make it feel even a little bit easier, because it can be hard. So yeah, I recommend, if you are getting stuck or you're feeling like, I don't know, I'm just so discouraged, I don't even know how to answer these questions. That's where I say, like, bring in someone that knows you, that knows your heart, that knows your true desires, that knows like what you really value, or can at least understand where you're coming from and help you work through some of those questions and provide a little bit of an objective perspective. Because a lot of times our emotions and our personal biases and experiences are influencing the answers we might give. So it can be helpful to have someone else like help you work through that, to make sure that what you're answering and what you're finding is really aligned with where you want to go and what you value.
Do you find at that time people are really kind of redefining their own success and what it means for them?
100%. That's really the objective of that exercise. It's really saying, what does success look like for you? And when you start asking why to a lot of the goals or obligations or commitments on your plate, it helps you understand, like, really ultimately, it helps you understand what you value, because a lot of times we don't make decisions based on what we value. We make decisions based on what we think we should do. And so, yeah, I mean, a huge piece of this exercise is meant to help you figure out, well, what does success really look like for me? And when you can start asking why you're doing certain things, why you're pursuing a certain revenue goal, or why you're trying to build a business, or why you're trying to get a promotion, or why you're trying to build a family or whatever, it's because you have a vision of what you truly value in your life. And maybe for you, it's not to be number one in your industry, or break glass ceilings. Like, maybe for you it is, but you have to kind of work through those things and say, like, you know what, actually, I don't really care to build a massive business. I'm actually really good with like freelancing, and that gives me the free time to be home with my family. You're going to find that if that's what you come to, it's going to give you a lot of clarity on what success looks like for you. Whereas someone else might say, you know what, I actually don't really love the idea of having a family. I've just always felt like I'm supposed to. And I really actually feel like I'm supposed to pioneer this new innovation in this industry. And I feel like I'm the one that's called to do, like, you'll find that as you work through these, what you really value and what's right for you.
It seems like taking that kind of inventory is just so valuable. Is this
Mhm.
something that can be used? And you mentioned family, but is this something that can
Mhm.
be used in relationships and
100%.
just, school, anything?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's, sometimes students can go through this and find like, oh, you know what? I'm in the wrong career path. Like I'm pursuing the wrong thing. I've just been doing this because my dad said I was supposed to, or because that's what I thought would be successful. Or, you know what? Actually, I think I need to go start a business or go to trade school. This isn't really aligned with the life I want to build. I'm just doing it because all my friends went to school. So I think it can be applied to academics. I think it can be applied to the goals we have in our industry and our careers. It can be applied to family or relationships. Like, sometimes we find ourselves like pursuing a relationship or networking in a certain area because we feel like left out, because we feel like we want to be known in the industry. But then when we really step back and go, well, why am I doing that? We might find like I'm exhausting myself trying to force or build relationships that don't even really align with what I value or care about, or they're not even my kind of people. Like, what am I doing? So I think it can be applied in various different areas. And it's just asking yourself, why? Why do I feel the need to be friends with this person? Maybe you'll find there's a really good reason, or you might find like, I don't know, I just want them to like me, so it can really apply to various different areas of life.
It seems that it also gives people like that permission they're looking for to pursue what they really enjoy.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, 100% what they enjoy and what matters to them. I think as much as we hate to experience the things that set us back, they do give us that moment to like catch our breath occasionally, because a lot of times, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your life too, but when something goes painfully wrong or just doesn't quite work out in the timing that we thought, a lot of times it forces us to slow down just because there's nothing else. It's like, wait, okay, what's going on? And it kind of makes you pause. And therefore, that's why that opportunity to really think through these things comes up, because in most normal times in life, when we're not experiencing a disappointment or a setback or something that's really devastating, we're moving at 100 miles an hour. We're juggling a lot of things. We're saying yes to all the things. We're doing a lot. And that's why I say this is, as much as it's hard and terrible and unfair in many ways, it does present a unique opportunity to kind of step back and have that thinking room in that space. So, yeah.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Jordan Lee Dooley in regards to her new book, Embrace Your Almost. Find clarity and contentment in the in-betweens, not quites, and unknowns. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
Are you looking to untangle life's riddles? Discover the profound teachings of Dr. Shai Tabali, renowned philosopher, best-selling author, and your guide to self-empowerment. With methods that harmonize psychological and spiritual principles, Dr. Tabali's wisdom offers a pathway to holistic transformation. Take that first step today and join thousands globally and embrace the journey to higher consciousness. Visit shaitabali.com, that's SHAITUBALI.com now.
Hello, Dr. Cutler here. Do you experience bloating, heartburn, food craving, bowel irregularity, food sensitivities, weight issues? If you do not digest your food, you may be deficient in macronutrients, which your body needs for optimal health. DrEllenCutler.com teaches that this is an enzyme deficiency. I believe the most important supplement is a full-spectrum digestive enzyme, Dr. Ellen's Way Digestive Enzymes. Hear more about it at DrEllenCutler.com.
Are you chasing profitability yet losing fulfillment? Let me introduce you to your solution, the Relaunch Company. I'm Hillary DeCesar, an entrepreneurial performance coach, fearless leader of the Relaunch Company, here to help put the pedal to the metal and relaunch your business your way. Visit www.therelaunch.com. Take the free quiz to learn 3 steps towards waving goodbye to burnout and hello to success.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antia-John Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our special guest, Jordan Lee Dooley, who's sharing with us her new book, Embrace Your Almost. Find clarity and contentment in the in-betweens, not quites, and unknowns. So we talked earlier about how we should pause and slow down to gain clarity. Have you gone through a situation recently where it just asked for you to pause? And what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I'll share a brief story. So, when one of the big changes I would say that we made to pause and slow down and gain clarity, when my husband and I were newlyweds, we've only been married a handful of years, but when we were like newlyweds, we bought a 3-acre property with an old colonial farmhouse on it because we thought like, oh, we're going to be Chip and Joanna Gaines, like HGTV lifestyle. Like, let's go. This is going to be awesome. So we had this idea that like, that was the best idea ever. And then, so we bought the house, we started doing some projects here and there, but we were also traveling a lot for work. And so we tried to, work it in where we could. Well, anyway, flash forward a couple of years, we went through some devastating loss, some things that created a lot of challenges for us. And suddenly we started to go through this process when we all of a sudden were experiencing some really hard setbacks. We started to go through this process where we were like, what is our priority in this season? And I actually call that the present priority. So sometimes when you go through a setback or a disappointment, it can actually, like I said, it makes you pause, but I really encourage you to consider like, what is my present priority? What really needs tending to in my life in the short term? You might have this big picture idea of where you want to go, but in the short term, in the next 6 months or 12 months, like what really needs your support or your focus or your attention? And in my case, it was like, well, I really need to like reduce my stress levels and focus on my health because I am really burned out and like, this is just too much. And what we were finding is when it comes to the house that we had just bought, it had become such a stressor and a stress point in our lives because one project was turning into 2 projects, which was turning into 3 projects. And there was more and more issues we were uncovering with the home that we just realized like, that's not super sustainable. And that's probably not the right thing for us to be focusing our time, talent, resources, et cetera, into in this season. Like really, we need to focus on our health, and the stress of trying to manage this house, repair this house, renovate this house, like all of that is way too much and it's creating more stress for us. So we made this really hard decision, and it was a long decision. It took several months to make the decision, but we ended up deciding to sell the house and simplify. And that was really hard because we had this idea of like, this is going to be like our 10 to 20 year home. We're going to raise our kids here. We're going to paint it white. Like we had this whole vision of what we wanted out of it. And we had to pivot from that because it wasn't supporting our present priority. In fact, it was actually taking away from it. And so I would say like that's a really recent in the last year or two experience that I've had, that it sometimes requires you to let go of a vision that you had when the pursuit of that vision or that dream or that idea of what was going to be is actually really taking away from what you truly prioritize in this season of your life, whether that's your health or getting out of debt or something else. Sometimes there's these other things that we think we really want, but the pursuit of them, at least in this season, we may renovate another farmhouse or buy land again in 5 years or 10 years. But in that season, it was actually like really not right for us. And so we had to make the hard decision. And sometimes I still miss like the idea of, man, I was going to put a front porch on that house and I had this whole vision. But I don't regret making that hard decision because now we've been able to simplify. We have less yard to maintain. And ultimately, I feel more peace in my life and I've been able to reduce stress. And so I'm not suggesting that every decision is going to be like this massive, like uproot your life and go move kind of decision, but sometimes it will. And it can create a lot of freedom when you allow yourself to release the things that are actually taking away from what you prioritize.
What are some of the unexpected, kind of gifts when someone takes that pause and takes that break and reevaluates?
Yeah. I call this unexpected gains that can come from unwanted pain. And pain can have a variety of different levels to it. Sometimes it's true, like searing pain, and sometimes it's just frustration. But I've noticed that different gifts can come out of those types of experiences. Things like empathy. Sometimes when we are just running at 100 miles an hour and living our lives and doing our thing and things are all working out peachy keen, we don't really connect with those who are struggling, or we try to, but we just can't get ourselves there. And sometimes when we go through our own heartbreaks or frustrations or setbacks, it allows us to build that connection again, like in a way that we were maybe even too busy for before, which is hard to admit. But I know I've been in that place where I just have a hard time really connecting and being empathetic for those who are walking through something hard when everything's just working out in my life and I'm running 100 miles an hour toward whatever it is that I think I need to be doing. So that's a huge one. I'd also say discernment is huge. And the reason I say this is because I feel like through my own experiences with almost and not quites and setbacks and in-betweens and waiting, a lot of times when those things have happened in our life, I find myself being a lot more thoughtful about who I trust, what voices I listen to, the decisions I make, the things I say yes to. So this deeper level of discernment and kind of thoughtfulness about the decisions we make, the things we say yes to, and the voices we listen to can also be born out of our big disappointments or even devastating experiences. And another one I would say is patience. I don't know about you, but patience was not a virtue I was born with. And so I've had to really learn that by experience. And it's not fun by any means. It's not a gain or a virtue that I want to have to go through the fire to gain. But I will say through setbacks and disappointment and broken dreams, I've really had to learn and lean into like, man, there are just some things that are out of my control. And so really learning like the gift and the art of patience in a way that doesn't come naturally to me. And I don't think that comes naturally to most of us now in our like instant gratification world, where if you want something, you order on Amazon and it's there the next day. Or if you want to watch a show, you pull it up on your, like, there's so many things that are at the touch of our, at the tip of our fingertips right now that we've gotten so used to like instant gratification. And so sometimes those things in life that you really can't force, whether it's the relationship you want or the promotion you're hoping for or the pregnancy or something else, like when those things don't quite work out how we want, it's devastating. It's hard. It's frustrating. But it does breed this deeper sense of patience in us that I think ultimately builds our character. And that's something worth celebrating, even if not fun.
So, to kind of dovetail with that, when is it time to let go of a dream when we've been chasing it and it's just not coming up?
It's such a hard thing to do, whether it was the house or there was a time where I closed my business for a while because I felt like I didn't know the direction. Like I share all these stories and embrace your almost, but the hard thing is sometimes our almost or the things that don't quite work out in our life are sometimes something we actually have to decide to let go of. It's not always something that was disrupted by a curveball or that was taken from us, but sometimes it's like, I have to consciously make this decision to let it go. And, I think it's different for all of us knowing, is it time to let go of a good thing because it's ultimately not the right thing? If that makes sense. A great example of that is like, I'm in a relationship, it's comfortable, like I'm familiar with this person, but I just don't think we have like our values aren't aligned. So I don't know how this can be something where we could be on the same page when it comes to raising a future family. Or in my case, the house, like I love this home. It's so cute. There's so much potential here. It could be our Pinterest worthy house, but it's just not quite right. in the sense of it's not right for us this season. This is causing more stress than it is, good. So anyways, those types of experiences where it's like, it's a good thing. A house is a good thing. A relationship can be a good thing, but it might not be the right thing, at least not in this season of your life. I think ultimately it comes down to asking like, okay, this is a good thing, but is it the right thing? And sometimes coming to that conclusion on our own is really, really hard. And that's why I say like consult those trusted people in your life. Like I had to talk with my husband about this. I actually spoke with several people in my inner circle, friends, mentors, financial advisors, before we made the decision to sell the house, because it felt like I was parting with something that was really good and something I cared about. And so my best advice is if there's something that you just feel like a little bit of a lack of peace with, and you're not sure if it's something you should let go, don't assume that if it's a hard decision, it's the wrong decision. Because I think sometimes we think, oh, well, if I'm supposed to do this, it should be easy or it should feel easy. And that's not always the case. And secondly, I think try to consult with mentors or trusted advisors in your life, maybe a parent or a spouse or a friend or a real estate agent or, a financial advisor. Consult with a handful of people and go through the pros and cons with them of like, here's where I'm getting stuck. Here's what's tripping me up about this. Am I overthinking this and maybe worried about it? And they may say, yeah, actually, I don't think you need to let that go. I think you're overthinking it. Or they may say, yeah, I can see why that's a problem or why that's kind of a roadblock for you. I think it may be wise to try to let that go. So don't be afraid to seek counsel is, I guess, my best piece of advice. We're such an independent culture where it's like, you do you, I'll do me. But I think it's really wise in those kind of big decisions to seek counsel from people you trust. It can really help you think through something that feels difficult or close to your heart and that can just be very, very confusing.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's always good to have another pair of eyes or another perspective so we can really see kind of things that maybe we missed.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my goodness, Jordan, I know we could talk forever. I mean, I just loved your book. I thought Embrace Your Almost was such a great and empowering read. And I know you also have what's called Soul Scripts. Why don't you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah. So Soul Scripts is actually what got me started in publishing and writing and everything I do now. It started as a small Etsy store when I was a senior in college, believe it or not. And it was a hand lettering store, which meant I would doodle or write like scriptures or verses or things that were encouraging to me, quotes, etc., on canvases or mugs or different products. And I would sell those on Etsy. And then I started sharing different stories on social media alongside pictures of my products, just stories of things I was learning or experiencing or whatever. And some of those would get picked up and shared a lot on social media platforms. And so I started to grow an online community. And at one point I was talking about the importance of community and vulnerability and support. And I used a phrase, I said, your brokenness is welcome here. I just ended my social media caption with that phrase. Didn't think much of it. It was just meant to say like, come as you are. I'm here for you. Like, we can do hard things together. Anyway, that turned into a massive movement. There were hundreds and hundreds of emails in my inbox the next morning of people asking, can you put this on a sweatshirt? Can you put it on a pillow? Can you put it on a tapestry for my house? And so we ended up starting with a sweatshirt line, and that just exploded over the course of the next few years. And so anyways, it's kind of evolved, but ultimately, and we even closed it for a little while, which I share about in the book, but it ultimately, through my own season of almost and heartbreak and hard things, I really came to the conclusion that when people go through disappointments, setbacks, hardships, etc., sometimes it's really hard to know what to say. It's like, what do I even say? Because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I want to offer some support and encouragement. And so Soul Scripts has really evolved into a brand that's designed to help support people you love or even yourself through those setbacks, those disappointments, those hard times. And so we have an apparel line with your brokenness is welcome here on the front. Get that for yourself or send it to a friend and just say like our whole mission statement is we give you the words when you have none, which is meant to be like, when you don't know what to say, when you don't know what, how to support, here's something you can send or here's something you can say that basically communicates I'm here for you and I'm here with you in the trenches, in the frustration, in the setback, etc. And so we have journals to help people work through their seasons of just feeling stuck, as well as apparel that says your brokenness is welcome here.
Yeah, it's such great stuff. Well, what's your website that people can find you? Because I know you've got your show that you do, you've got your other books. I mean, you just have all of your amazing stuff.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, the best place to find me would be at jordanleedooley.com. That's where you can find, we have a link to the Soul Script shop. We have a link to some of my programs where I coach and teach women how to build businesses from home. We've got links to the podcast, which is like a women's wellness podcast. We've got a couple arms to what we do, but if you go to jordanleedooley.com, you'll find it all there.
Well, Jordan, thank you for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to have me and for listening to all my rambles.
Well, thank you, Jordan Lee. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Embrace Your Almost. Find clarity and contentment in the in-betweens, not quites, and unknowns. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.